Hey, what's up? I'm Norris and welcome back to another Sew Along. Now today we'll be working on my latest pattern design with Know Me pattern, ME2048, and today we'll be working on view B, the drop crotch pants. Now this is not a learn to sew video, so if you're new to sewing or just need a refresher course, you can visit our sewing and design school at sewitacademy.com. So now that you have the pattern, all your materials, let's get started. Okay, like I said before, we're using my latest pattern design with Know Me patterns, and it's ME2048, and we will be doing view B, which are the drop crotch sweatpants. Okay, and once again, if you look on the back, you can look at your sizes and pay attention to finished garment measurement so you can get a more accurate finished fit. And then at the top, fabric suggestions, and then also your notions. And for this particular pattern, we will be using 1-inch elastic. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna work with our back piece. Now the back piece, you should have a marking for that back pocket. And this is the back pocket here. So I put 2 little notches on the side for my fold. First, you're gonna serge the top, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold down just like this. And we're gonna use 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way down, across the bottom, then up the other side. All right, so go ahead, do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back for the machine, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and just trim some of this corner at the top. Because my fabric is the same on both sides, if you're using a French terry that has like a smoother side and the side with a little bit more texture, a little bit more nap on it, you, instead of doing it right sides facing, you can do it wrong sides facing, and then once you turn it right side out like this, you'll have the raw edge showing on one side. Or you can just do exactly how I did it, and it'll come out the traditional way. Okay, so now you want to give this a good press. Make sure you turn where your stitching is, that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, all the way on both sides, and then also across the bottom. And then once you give that a really good press, you want to go ahead and do your stitching line across the top, encasing this side right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can probably see right here, I have my stitching line across the top. And then now we're just going to line up with the dots, our placements for the pockets. And then we're just going to pin along the sides and then also the bottom. Okay, so now let's head to the machine. We're just going to top stitch on the side, across the bottom, then up the other side, and then we're going to come back and continue. Okay, we're going to back stitch at the beginning and then also at the end. Okay, now that we have our back pocket in place, we're all set. Now we can move along to our pockets. Now, I have the same material for my pockets that's attached to my back, and I put a lighter fabric on my front just so you won't be able to see the pocket bag shape. Okay, so I'll show you the front in just a moment, but for the back, you want to at least put the same exact fabric, because when you open your pockets, you can see the back of your pocket first. So there should be a notch we should be lining up to. Okay, just like that. Pin the other one the same exact way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head to the machine, and we're just going to stitch from the top to the bottom, and then from the bottom to the top, using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. All right, so you want to do the other one the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, my pocket bags are attached. I have my seam allowances faced towards the pocket. And also, if you want to notice, I have my pocket all the way up to my waistband. So now this is just so it can catch the top. I just slid them up a little bit. If you look at the instructions, they have it stopping about 1 inch from the waistband. So it's up to you. You can slide it up or you can keep it the same like instructions, but this is how I like to construct mine. And then now, once you do your front the same way, and as you can see, my lining in the front is just a little bit thinner, like I was mentioning earlier. You want to lay them on top. I'm just going to work on one side for right now. So you should have 2 dots, as you can see right here. This is where you're going to be stitching from the top and stopping at the dot. Cut your threads, and then we're going to move to the bottom dot and then go all the way down your side seam. And then now we're going to pin around the pocket bag. Okay, so now we're going to head over to the machine. We're going to start from the top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to stitch here, cut your threads, and then we're going to move all the way down to the second dot, stitching all the way down to the hem. And then once we do that, we're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch around the pocket bag to close that out. All right, so let's head to the machine and stitch this. So once you get done with one side, you want to do the other side the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the sewing machine. As you can see, we have our side seam stitched down and also our pocket bags. So one real quick tip before we continue. Now, because these pocket bags are not attached to the waistband per se, because it's supposed to be like 1 inch down, one way to keep them to the front is you can get a piece of your fabric that stretches a little bit, and you can just basically measure the distance, and then you can tack down both ends. Only thing you need is just a little, maybe a 1 inch strip to go across the front, and that'll keep your pockets from sagging on the side once we finish up. Okay, and you can do that at the end. You can do it now. That's just another quick tip for this particular sweatpant. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to close out the inseam. Go ahead and pin where your notches are. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start on one end and stitch all the way across the inseam using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, we're going to come back and work on our waistband. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have our inseam stitched down. And right now we're going to put this to the side for just a moment, and we're going to work on our waistband. Now this right here is the front waistband. You have markers to show you where your buttonhole should be placed for the drawstring. And on the back, I just put a little strip of stabilizer, which is interfacing, just so it runs smoothly up on the machine, especially because it's a knit. And it just makes it a little bit more sturdy once you put your drawstring in there. So you want to do that right now, and you make buttonholes however your machine instructions show you. All of them are different. So once you do that, with right sides facing, I'm going to take my back piece, right side up, and then turn my front down. Okay. So on the opposite end of where your buttonholes are, it will be the inside of your waistband. And with that, you want to pay very close attention to your markings. So we should have some dots here. Now there are 4 dots. The first one, what we're going to do is we're going to stitch along the side all the way up, and we're going to back stitch at the first dot and cut our threads. And then we're going to skip over to the second dot, leaving space open here. And then we're going to stitch from here to here, and then we're going to cut our threads at that third dot, and then we're going to skip over to the last dot, and we're going to stitch to the edge. Now that's going to keep an inch opening for these two here, and then it's going to be closed right there. And the seam allowance is going to be 5/8 of an inch. All right, so let's head to the machine and stitch this down. And then the other side, we're just going to stitch it all the way across. Okay, so now we see we have an opening here and then an opening here. And on the other side, we're just going to stitch it down. Okay, so we're back for the machine. You want to press your seam allowance open on both sides, and then we're just going to flip it right sides out. I'm gonna go ahead and cut my buttonhole open. Okay, so now it's gonna look basically just like this. So right now I'm just gonna pin that edge together where the side seams are, just to keep everything straight. Okay, here we go. So I'm just gonna grab the paper pattern because it's much easier to see. So let me show you what we've done. So now it looks just like this. And there are two stitching lines on the top and then the bottom of the buttonholes. So if I came to the fold and I measured down, that's almost 1 inch from the folded edge. 1 1/8 of an inch, okay? So we go to the machine, our seam allowance can be 1 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge, and that'll give us a stitching line there. And then from that stitching line, we can measure down 3/4 of an inch, and then that'll give us a stitching line there. Okay, we don't have to worry about the bottom because the bottom is our 5/8 of an inch seam allowance when we attach it. So now let's just head to the machine and let's do our 2 rows of stitching, and then we're going to attach this to our pants. Okay, if you have a seam gauge, this works perfect, or you can just use a ruler. So 1 1/8 of an inch. Put my needle down where there it is. Boom. So I know my seam allowance, my fold should be right up here just past my 3rd number right there. Basically right here. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around. And as you can see, it works perfect because it's just above my buttonhole there. Okay, so now you want to measure out 3/4 of an inch from that stitching line and stitch all the way around the same exact way. And then once you do that, we're going to head back over to the table and we're going to attach this to our pants. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have our 2 buttonholes here for our drawstring entrance. And if you turn to the inside, you should see your 2 holes here that we're going to tack, that we're going to hand stitch closed later once we insert our elastic. Okay, so before we insert our elastic, let's go ahead and attach this to our pants. Okay, so we can tell which one is the front with our buttonholes there. And then now we're just going to turn it wrong side out. And then we're just going to tuck this into the inside just like this. So now the front of your waistband should be touching the front of your pants. And then there should be some notches for us to match up. So now let's also make sure we go ahead and attach at the seams first so our seams won't be off. Now throughout the project, I haven't did I didn't talk too much about serging. I'm not serging this particular fabric here because it stretches too much one way and it'll pull my fabric, and this fabric don't have too much recovery. But if you have fabric that recovers pretty well, by all means go ahead and finish the insides really nicely, and we'll cover all that before I close out. Okay, so now you're just going to head over to the machine, and we're going to stitch all the way around using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And also in the front, I just want to show you, because I slid my pocket bag up a little bit before I stitched it down, I get to catch some of the top into my waistband, which means it'll be able to stay to the front. Okay, but if you didn't do that, like I said, you can do the strip of fabric to have them stay in the front. All right, so now let's head to the machine, do our 5/8 of an inch seam allowance stitching, and come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we attach the waistband to the pants, and then now we're just gonna go ahead and take your elastic and then shift it through the two holes that we have, okay? So what I like to do is I like to take my elastic, wrap it around my waist, and just to see what's a comfortable fit. Once I do that, I give myself about another extra, like 3/4 of an inch, cut it off, just so I have room to overlap and do my zigzag at the end, okay? So you need to do that, and then once you measure one, measure the second one the same exact way. So now I like to take a safety pin, as you can see right here, just hook the end just like this, and then now we're just gonna come to the inside, and we're just going to work with the first one and just pull it through. And then now once we make it back to the other side, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin both of these in place just so I can evenly distribute that elastic. So now you can kind of basically go and try these on to see if that's a good fit for you before you end up doing your other ones. But we cut it in the right length that we want, so it should be perfect. So now go ahead and head to your machine. We're going to overlap them like this, and then we're just gonna do a couple of zigzags, making sure that I don't make it twisted. I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple of rows of zigzag stitches. Okay, so we're back from the machine. You wanna go ahead and make sure you get that to the inside. And then now what we're gonna do is just get a needle and thread and just hand stitch this close. And after you do that, you want to do your other one the same exact way, and then we'll work on our drawstring. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, both of our elastos are put in. And the only thing we have to do is hand stitch both of these closed, and we'll be all done. And then now we're just gonna move along to our drawstring. So for right now, move that to the side, and you should have two cut out your fabric. And with right sides facing, you want to take one end and stitch it using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, we're back from the machine. I'm just gonna trim this down to about 3/8 of an inch. And you can press that open if you like. And now we're right sides facing. We're going to be stitching a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So they're going to be starting on this end, and then we're going to be stitching all the way down. But first, let me go ahead and just pin real quick. Okay, so now that we have it all pinned, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're gonna start on the short side, and we're gonna pivot, and then go all the way along this long side here. All the way, and then we're gonna stop about, I would say, 2 to 3 inches before we get to that center seam, and we're gonna cut our threads, and then we're gonna go to the other side. Start here at the corner, pivot, go all the way down, closing it out, and about 2 or 3 inches before we get to this side, we're going to back stitch and break your threads. And then once you do that, let's come back and we're gonna turn it right side out. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and closed out the drawstring and I left the center open. So you can take something like a pencil that's narrow that'll be able to fit through here, but that's long enough that you can get quite a bit drawstring in it. Okay, so once you get it in, okay, then take it out and then do the other one the same exact way. Okay, so now with that opening, take that 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides, put it together, and we're just going to edge stitch to close it out. Once you do that, come back and we're going to put it into our waistband. Okay, so once again, you don't want to damage your drawstring up, so make sure just be very careful. So now you just want to go through one end of your buttonhole and then just take your time and shift it through until you get to the other side. Okay, so now that we got it all the way around, just even it out. Okay, just like that. And then now, next we're going to give you options for your hem. So now, I'm not sure if I want to cuff mine because you don't have to cuff if you don't want to. You can basically turn it under and finish it out, so it'll be a little bit longer. But the pattern, it shows you there's a fold line. I put a notch. Okay, so my fold line is basically right here. But first, let me turn the right side out. Okay, so the fold line is here where my notch is at. So you want to turn it up right there at the fold line. Then head to your machine and you can stitch all the way around. And then once that's in place, I'm trying to grab it without moving it. Then it'll be like this on the right side. And the only thing I have to do next is turn it up 2.5 inches. And voila, you have your cuff. And then just tack it down to both sides, okay? And you can do the other one the other side the same exact way. So once again, you want to go ahead and hand stitch your openings on the inside. You can serge off all of your seams just to have it nice and neat on the inside, and that would include your outside seam and then also your inside seam, or you can trim it off or do zigzag stitches. And then you have a couple of options for your hem. You can do exactly what I just showed you for the cuff, like you see on the actual pattern, or you can just do a regular tuck under and top stitch for your hem. And then once you do all of that, you're all done. All right, congratulations, you're all done. Now I hope you enjoyed this course, and also be sure to tag me on all your amazing makes at Norris Danta 4, and I will see you in the next sew along.